Mayor for his introduction, and thank you for his words of inspiration and encouragement, and the wonderful grit and determination of people, not just here, obviously here in Southern Illinois, but I think what you're hearing from him is what you hear all across in every small town in America, of folks coming together. People from all over the country coming together at a time of crisis. We didn't wait for the government or FEMA to help. When a neighbor is in trouble, when a fellow Illinoisan is in trouble, when a fellow American is in trouble, Americans step up. Americans individually, or in community and civic organizations, or businesses, large and small, from all over America. When they see a need, it's just who we are. We come and help those who are in trouble. We have a situation in this country with some who don't believe that in America. They believe that we need the government to do more things for us. You saw what the government's response was to Harrisburg. No, bottom line is that America is a great country not because we waited around for government to take care of us. We went out and did it ourselves. Here in Herrin for their thoughtfulness. And just even this event, there are things going on here at this event to try to help and aid folks in Harrisburg for what they've gone through. And I know that I just want to thank them. I'm glad that we're some small way of being a part of the relief effort and trying to help in some way our the folks down in Harrisburg. I want to thank all of you here in Herrin for participating in it. Congratulations to you. Southern Illinois. We're getting great reports from the delegate elections in the state of Missouri. We are feeling very, very good about those delegate elections. We're going to have a very good number of delegates coming out of the state of Missouri, I have a feeling. And we've had a great day here in Southern Illinois. We really have. We just came from Mount Vernon, and we were up in Effingham before that. And we had big crowds, lots of enthusiasm. It's a little warm in here, but it was a lot warmer in the other two places in the middle of the day. But big crowds showed up, and we just felt so welcome here. So much felt like the folks who stand for traditional values, who stand for limited government, out of the picture in the state of Illinois. You have a great opportunity in this election for the conservative part of Illinois to speak loudly to the country. I'm particularly excited that we decided to come here to Herrin. I understand that Herrin was founded in part by Italian immigrants, of which my family comes from Italy. I understand now this spring it might a little cold, which is something that I understand. People don't realize that Illinois has the third largest coal reserves in the country. Just like the mines in western Pennsylvania, they aren't quite as busy as they once were. We're shutting down mines in Pennsylvania. We're being denied permits because of the environmental regulation, the OSHA regulation, MSHA regulations, and all of the things that this administration is doing to keep that coal in the ground, because they see coal as a liability. They see oil and gas as a liability. They want to keep that energy in the ground, and they like to see oil and gas prices and energy prices go up. Until, of course, they do go up. And when they go up, then the administration runs around and says, oh, we didn't mean this much. We were hoping that maybe it would just go up gradually so you wouldn't notice it. But all of a sudden you see the results of two policies. Obama foreign policy, which has been weak and appeasing for radical Islamists in the Middle East. As a result of that weakness, we see folks in the Middle East starting to flex their muscle. You see what was originally hopefully called the Arab Spring turned into a very dark and dangerous winter. A winter where radical Islamist governments now in Libya and Egypt have taken control and threatened to fundamentally change relationships between not just the United States, but with Israel. And you see what's happening now in Iran, where the president continues to show weakness, refuses to move forward at critical times during his administration, where we had an opportunity to overthrow this radical regime, this regime that has 40 nuclear sites, 40. Is enriching uranium. Up now, they've accomplished 20% enrichment of uranium, what they believe is enough to make 6 nuclear weapons. 20%, by the way, is 15% more than is necessary to make fuel rods for nuclear power. They have 40 sites guarded by anti-aircraft batteries, buried in deep bunkers on hillsides, mountainsides that are impregnable. And yet we have the Obama administration saying, well, we're not sure they're making a nuclear weapon. How stupid does this administration recognize what the reality is because you're afraid to confront us. That's what they think it is. So they become emboldened, and they put out even more radical talk of destroying the state of Israel as they did about 2 or 3 weeks ago. But they put out a radical, video, you could say, on a website tied to the Grand Ayatollah, talking about destroying the state of Israel, targeting the Jewish populated cities of Israel, talking about how they can wipe out the Jews in Israel. This is the radical talk. And shortly after that, we had the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying, oh, we don't think they've made a decision yet to build a nuclear weapon. And we have the President of the United States who gets up in front of a group of pro-Israel supporters in Washington last week before last now, saying how he's got Israel's back. 2 days later, I got up and said, Mr. President, you don't have Israel's back. You have turned your back on Israel. Piece of legislation that was all about trying to make sure that that radical regime was overthrown. Not because I wanted to start a war. It's because I wanted to prevent a war. We want to prevent them from getting nuclear weapons or being on the precipice and then having either them have that nuclear weapon and spread terror or use those weapons in pursuit of their jihad against the rest of the world. or to use it as a shield to spread terror everywhere, including everywhere here in the United States. You heard the head of the National Intelligence, Director of National Intelligence, say that there are dozens and dozens of plots that they've become aware of in the last year that Iran is working on here in the United States. And once they get a nuclear weapon, those dozens will become hundreds. Because they know that America will not attack another country that has a nuclear weapon. We never have. We never wanted to risk a nuclear exchange. They know that. And they will use that to try to spread their radical, venomous, evil version of jihadism, not just in the Middle East, throughout the world. We've had opportunity after opportunity under this administration to do something to overthrow this regime, and the president has said no. He sided with the mullahs and is negotiating with them. No wonder they feel like they can push the United States around and threaten to shut off the Straits of Hormuz, threaten to shut off oil supplies. Why do you think one of the biggest reasons our gas prices are high is because they know the United States is weak. And the rest of the world sees it. It sees Iran being able to execute their game plan and change the whole dynamic of energy security for the world. And what's the president's response been? We've had an opportunity to drill offshore. The president says no. We've had an opportunity to drill on federal lands. The president says no. We've had an opportunity to do deep water drilling. And the president said no. We have an opportunity to go up in Alaska and drill up in Anwar. And the president says no. And then we have an opportunity to bring oil from Canada and in from North Dakota, bring it down to the refineries in Oklahoma and the Gulf Coast. And the president said no. But the president did say yes. He said yes to the people of Brazil and providing them loan guarantees for them to drill off their coast, and talked about how they can become energy independent. But the Brazilians turned their back on us and said, no, we're not interested. We'll go with another country. A country that doesn't necessarily have our best interests in mind. Ladies and gentlemen, this president has a no energy policy. When you see those, when you go to those gas pumps here in Illinois, and you see the double-digit bill of dollars go into triple digits, and you see that zero pop up, don't think of zero, think of O for Obama, when that $100 bill. Who stood tall, the grandson of a coal miner, someone who grew up in a steel town in public housing, someone who had the opportunity to rise in America like so many others. Within one generation, my father and my grandfather were immigrants to this country. They came from northern Italy. They left in the 1920s, my grandfather in 1930, my dad, because they were being ruled by a guy named Benito Mussolini. My grandfather, after having fought in World War I, wanted no part of another dictator. And he came to America. He came to America because America offered something different. It didn't offer security, didn't offer a guaranteed job, didn't offer guaranteed anything. The only benefit America offered was what brought most of your families here: freedom. Yeah. Articulate a freedom agenda. Go out and talk about energy freedom. And do so from the standpoint of someone who believes that we need to produce more energy, more coal, more oil, more gas, more nuclear. We need to produce everything, ethanol, whatever it is that's made here in America. We need a made in America energy policy. Sarah Palin and John McCain about drill, baby, drill. He mocked us, oh, that's no way, we'll never be able to drill our way to economic and energy security. Well, he was wrong. If you look at 4 years ago and compare it to now, natural gas prices. Natural gas prices are $2.40. They were $13 a handful of years ago. And they came down why? Drill, baby, drill. In spite of this president not granting any permits, the eastern Gulf of Mexico or offshore on federal lands or in Alaska, we did it on private lands, in spite of the opposition of this president, in spite of the hyper-regulatory environment. I've been out there fighting for energy development in this country ever since I was involved in politics. I never bought into this idea that those fossil fuels in the ground were a threat to humankind. Through the hoax and the political science, not climate science, of man-made global warming. But the person I'm running against here in Illinois on Tuesday, he didn't have such a strong record. He bought into the fashionable argument that the elites in our culture were making about the harm of coal and the harm of oil and gas. And at the time when everybody was crowing about how we needed to do something about man-made global warming, I said, no, we need to believe in real science, not political science. And realize they weren't solutions that solved the problem. They were solutions that gave government the power over regulating your life and nothing more. Tax, but somebody in this race did. And it wasn't just Barack Obama. It was the governor of Massachusetts who went out and imposed carbon and CO2 caps on coal-fired power plants. And crowed about how dirty coal was and how we had to do something about man-made global warming. He talked about trying to negotiate a regional cap and trade first in the nation, even before President Obama was even elected. Oh, now he's out saying, oh, we need to drill because the climate changed in America. Just watch the Weather Channel. When it's popular to be for climate change, that's where he'll be. When it's now running for president and it's obvious what's going on, oh, it wasn't until recently, even in New Hampshire, he went up there and said, oh, I still believe man-made global warming is a problem, but I'm not for the solutions. Just imagine what would happen if he got into office and the climate changed again. Who would you trust to stand for American energy security? And that's not the only issue that's a great and important dividing issue in this campaign. Because cap and trade, cap and tax was all about government controlling your life, regulating your energy consumption, not just the business, but each and every one of them. When government controls your carbon export, carbon footprint, they control your life. Another place that they felt that they can control your life and they pushed forward, and this time successfully, of course, was was the reason I ended up getting this race. The reason my wife was a neonatal intensive care nurse for 9 years and saw the medical community and saw what government influence on medical decisions was, particularly with Medicaid. She saw Obamacare pass. She realized, just like I did, that we could no longer sit on the sideline and let this country go from a country where less than half of the people in this country receive some sort of government benefit to a country where every single American will be dependent upon the federal government for their health and their life. I'll never forget when the debt ceiling increase was a big controversy last summer. President Obama had his back against the wall and it didn't look like he was able to get his clean debt ceiling bill passed, one that had no spending cuts. He panicked and he went to the American public and in an inspiring, lofty speech asked the American public to call their members of Congress and get them to vote for a debt ceiling increase without cutting spending. And this lofty speech where he used his great power of rhetoric. What did he do? He looked into the camera and said to old ladies and old men on Social Security that if you don't call those members of Congress, you're not going to get your Social Security check. He said to our men and women who have spouses overseas fighting the war, he told them, you're not going to get your check if you don't call the member of Congress. Medicare recipient, you're not going to get your bills paid. Veterans, you're not going to get your benefits. Every person that relies in some way or another on the government. The President looked at the camera and deployed fear. And guess what happened? They shut down the switchboards. Because Americans were afraid. He saw the power of government control. He saw the power of dependency. And that's the power he now wants to have on every single man and woman in this country. That's why we must win this election. There's one candidate who's been out from the times I was driving around in Iowa, not too far from here, driving all the way through Iowa, up and down, all 99 counties, 385 town hall meetings, driving around with a guy named Chuck in a Dodge Ram pickup truck. We call it the Chuck Truck. And we drove around. It was usually him and me and my son or my daughter and maybe someone else that came around and sat in the crew cab. We drove around and we talked about the big issues of the day. We talked about what's at stake. And I talked about Obamacare. And then I talked some more about it and more about it. About how it's a threat to our freedom. It's a threat to the very essence of who America is. It's the reason we were able to win the 2010 election. This week is the anniversary of the signing and passage of Obamacare. And fittingly, the following week will be arguments of 3 days in the United States Supreme Court about why Obamacare is a constitutional affront. Coercive ability to force you to buy something that you don't want to buy. There's no better time to be out talking about Obamacare, talking about government control of your lives, but there's only one candidate in this race who can do that. Because the other candidate in this race cannot do that. Because he supported government-run health care. He supported government-mandated health care. He supported President Obama going out and imposing the Romney Plan in Massachusetts at the federal level. So you will not hear that debate from Governor Romney, because he is uniquely disqualified to make that argument. Why in the world would the Republican Party nominate as our nominee in the most critical election in this country's history? Why would we nominate someone who is uniquely disqualified to make the argument that is necessary to win this election? Governor Romney loves to run negative ads. I suspect many of you have gotten a robocall or two from talking about how horrible I am. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not out there talking about how horrible anybody is. I'm just talking about the big issues of the day and the record that each of us bring to the table. I'm out there talking about how 20 years ago, when I was a 32-year-old freshman member of Congress, authored a bill called Medical Savings Accounts, which eventually became Health Savings Accounts, that talks about free market economics in healthcare. There is a big difference between the man who says he's the economic heavyweight, the man who has all this private sector experience, yet every time there's a crisis, his move is to the left, and his move is big government control of your lives. People have asked me, how am I so confident that I can beat Barack Obama in the fall? I'm saying I'm running against someone who has the same record as Barack Obama, so I'm having to try to run. Big things. It's got to be about freedom. I know everybody wants to talk about jobs, but the reason our jobs are struggling in America is because we have a government that is oppressive and crushing businesses, creating huge amounts of uncertainty and regulation. We have an economic plan, but the first part of our economic plan, and I will do this on day one, is repeal every one of the job-crushing regulations. That reduces taxes on all individuals, throws out the old code, replaces it with a simple code, 2 rates, 10 and 28%, 5 deductions, children, charities, pensions, health care, and housing. That's it. Simple. How we remove the regulatory burden that this administration has put in place, will take that, will be the highest corporate rate in the world. America with the highest corporate taxes in the world. And then the president says, well, why can't you compete? And he wants to raise taxes on individuals and small businesses. On the corporate tax, we will take that tax and cut it in half from 35% to 17.5%. We will make it a flat tax, no deductions, no change. For small-town and rural America. For small-town and rural America, for blue-collar America, the folks who have been left behind, where the unemployment rates are the highest, where the population loss is the greatest over the past several decades. When it comes to blue-collar workers, they have an unemployment rate 3 times the level of people with college education. We need to have an economic plan and an idea that's going to put small-town, rural, and blue-collar America back to work. How are we as Republicans going to go across into the states and the counties and the communities that vote for Republicans? Think about it. Look at the map of the United States. blue being the Democrats, red being the Republicans, it's almost all red, except around the big cities. And yet, when we look at the economic plan that Republicans puts forward, it's always about tax breaks for higher income individuals who live in those blue areas mostly. And then we wonder, well, why can't we appeal to a broad section of America? We need to have a tax plan that says we want to put small town and rural America back to work. And that's why I take the corporate tax and manufacturing and I cut it to zero so those jobs opportunities in manufacturing and processing, whether it's minerals or timber or agriculture. The opportunity for small town America, rural America, to be able to compete for those high-value jobs again, to get those jobs that were going overseas and have them come back. That's what we can do with America. We have a plan. America's better days are not behind us. We're the greatest country in the history of the world. And I have no doubt that our best days are ahead of us. But as the Bible says, without vision, the people perish. We need a vision. Not one of managing the decline of our country, which is what this president's vision is. The one that believes not in managing things from the federal government. I didn't run for president because I wanted to be the most powerful man in the world. I wanted to run for president so I could give the power of Washington back to the people. I will submit a budget every year that spends less money than the year before. We will make sure that Washington lives within its means so you can live better and higher quality lives all across this country. Ultimately, this race is about big things. It comes down to one word that we've talked about before. It is the most important election of your lifetime. People have asked, how are we going to be able to pull America together? How are you going to be able to win? And how are you going to be able to govern if you do win? America is so divided. How can you pull America back together? I would make the argument that we need to first remind us what unites us. What we have in common. What makes us who we are. You see, we have a president who goes around and tries to remind us what divides us. Tries to pit one group against another. We need a president who can step forward and say, well, what is it that makes us American? Is it an ethnicity? Is it a race? No. No, we're all hyphenated Americans. So what is it to be an American? Well, you have to go back and understand that what makes us to be an American started from our foundation, from our founding documents. America was never about an ethnicity. It's about an ideal. It's about a common set of values, a starting place. Does everybody in America now hold that? Maybe not. But I can guarantee you the vast majority of Americans still do. And they just aren't reminded about our common history. You see, what this president is trying to do, what the left has been trying to do for a long, long time, is rewrite American history. Winston Churchill said the debate is not about the future. The debate is about the past. Because he understood that the debate about what we're to go in the future is going to be determined about what people think was successful in the past. And what we're seeing is an unprecedented attempt by the left in America to do what the radical left used to do in communist and socialist countries. It was every time a new leader would come into town, they would tear up the history books, burn them, and replace them with new versions of history. President Obama is in the process of doing that with respect to America. He's telling his story of America. His story, not the real history of America. He's trying to talk about an America that was fundamentally unfair. It was never about equality. It was oppressive. He talked about in Kansas how capitalism doesn't work anymore. In fact, it probably never did. It led to great inequity. Remember when he ran for the Senate here in Illinois, is talking about how one of the things he would like to have seen in the Constitution was an amendment that allowed for redistribution of wealth, because that would have made America a better country. When he was critiquing Paul Ryan's budget that was introduced a year ago, when Paul Ryan listed all of the entitlement programs, Barack Obama said, and listed them all and said we needed to cut them because they had ballooned in growth to now 60% of the budget. President Obama said America is a better country because of these commitments, of all of these social welfare programs. And he said, I'll go one step further. America was not a great country until these government programs were passed. That's the rewriting of history about what America is really about. I think we need a leader who reminds us, like Ronald Reagan did. I'll be at Dixon, Illinois, in front of the Reagan statue on Monday. And we'll be trying to remind everybody of how important leaders providing a clear vision of what brings us and unites us in America. And what does is to go back to the founding of this country. Something we all used to agree on, in fact, something we all used to learn. The Tea Party has done a wonderful job in this country of resurrecting a dead letter called the Constitution of the United States. This document is a great document, but it alone is insufficient. It is the operator's manual of America. It's the how of America. It's how the government is to operate. But it is not the whole story. The why of America, who we are, the heart of American exceptionalism, is in a document that anchors that Constitution. And that, of course, is the Declaration of Independence. And these words, written in the second paragraph, after those lovely flowering words, they got to the heart of the matter right away in the Declaration. The heart of the matter was, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, among them life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Declaring our independence from the greatest power in the world. We boldly declare that there are truths, that there is truth. Now, if you dare speak that, you are scorned as someone who's trying to impose your morality on somebody else. How dare we talk about truth? good and evil, right and wrong. Who are we? We are Americans. The greatness of America is that we stood for right against wrong. And we had the courage and the knowledge to go out and tell the people the difference between the two. Self-evident, obvious to all. Obvious to all. People of faith, people of no faith. They are self-evident. Through simple reason, we can discern this. We know it. It is written on the heart of each and every one of us. No matter where you come from. That all men are created equal. And people say all the time now, they call for equality. They say that those who have Judeo-Christian values are not for equality. You know of which I'm speaking. And yet, where does this concept of equality come from? Does it come from Islam? Are all people created equal under Islam? No, they are not. Does it come from any other major religion other than the Judeo-Christian religion? The answer is no, it does not. It comes from the fact that we are endowed by a Creator who sees us as equal in His eyes. Not nearly as smart as she is. Or vice versa, I'm not sure. She may be stronger than he is. Who knows? But objectively, none of us are equal. We're all different. And if we look at it from a humanistic point of view, there is no equality. There's only equality. Because we look past differences between us and we look something deeper, eternal. Something that says we respect the dignity of every human person. That is who we are as Americans. We're a country that believes in people having rights given to them, basic rights given to them by God, not by the government or even by this Constitution. These rights are recognized in the Constitution, not granted. When government says that they're going to give you a new right, run for your wallet and understand you are about to be ruled. Government to protect those freedoms, to guarantee those rights so you can go out and pursue your dreams and work hard, risk and succeed and fail, build families, churches, schools, civic and community organizations, provide for yourself and for your neighbor. All the things we see happening here in Southern Illinois. That's what made America the greatest country in the history of the world. That's what made America unique in the world. And we changed the world. People forget what America has done. You see all these countries now try to say, oh, America, they were fine, it's no big deal. I mean, their time has come, it's now past. No, it's not. What we have done, in 1776, life expectancy in America and around the world was about 35 to 40 years of age, as it had been for 2,000 years. We were an agrarian society as the world had been for 2,000 years. And in 200 years of America, life expectancy has doubled. We've gone from an agrarian to an industrial to a technology economy. We've created wealth and richness and quality of life that unheard of, unseen, unimaginable. Because we loosed the human spirit and believed in the dignity of man. America has transformed the world. And we should never have a president go anywhere outside this country and apologize even once. Something really dramatic. I said to the people in Mississippi and Alabama when I was down there last week, we had a pretty good week last week. Just so we don't get too down about being outspent 10-1 here in Illinois, it wasn't any better in Mississippi or Alabama. We were badly outspent. They ran negative ads. They said some of the most horrific things in their robocalls. People of Mississippi and Alabama, people of Kansas, all last week, they ignored all the negativity. They focused on a vision, a hope. Somebody could create that contrast with President Obama. Somebody could paint that vision. Somebody who connected with the average person out there in America. Someone who believed in them, not government. And they went out, and they did extraordinary things. No one saw it, no one predicted it. On election night, the odds makers, there is such a thing in politics, believe it or not, gave us a 4% chance of winning Mississippi and a 12% chance of winning Alabama. They thought the money was just overwhelming. The polls showed us behind. We had a secret weapon. We had a secret weapon. We had people who went out there, ordinary, average folks who love their country and want to take it back, and they did extraordinary things. At the end of that Declaration, our founders wrote this phrase. The phrase is one that sticks with me. It says, "We mutually pledge to each other." We mutually pledge to each other. Let me just say the phrase before that. With a firm reliance on the protection of the divine providence. You could write those things back then and not be called a religious zealot. Pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. Good work. Ladies and gentlemen, they wrote that, and they did in fact pledge all of those things. They risked everything they had, their lives, in committing an act of treason against the greatest power in the world, with very little chance of victory. They believed so deeply what they were doing. They wanted to give themselves, and more importantly, their children and their grandchildren, us, the people they knew not of. They wanted to give each and every one of us something that had never been given before in human history: true freedom. challenge before it. Americans stood, faced the challenge, met the challenge, kept the torch of freedom burning alive. It is now our time to hold that torch. If we are not successful in this election, I fear that we will be the generation that allows the torch to go out. I do not believe that is going to happen. But it will happen unless each one of us pledges, not our lives. No, thankfully, this is not a struggle where our lives have to be put on the line. Or even our fortunes. Although if you go to ricksantorum.com, we will willingly accept any contribution. But you all know I wouldn't be here if you didn't. Your honor is on the line. Honor is not a word that's often used in American lexicon. We all stand on the shoulders of those who stood before us. And we carry that torch not just for our country, but for our families, for our ancestors, for the people of this community here in Herrin, for Southern Illinois, for our country. Our honor is on the line, whether we will be those good stewards who took this great gift and hand off a flame that is brighter and more hopeful than what we were given. That is our challenge. That is our duty. So I ask each and every one, over the next 2 days, most of you have the day off tomorrow. Don't take the day off. Pray in the morning, and then go out at church and everywhere else you go throughout that day. And fight for freedom. If we do the impossible here in Illinois, one of Mitt Romney's folks said it would take an act of God for Rick Santorum to get the nomination. Go out and do their duty. And if you do, you walk out of here not just vocally, but you actually do the duty of freedom. Actually work hard. Call your friends. Post this up on Facebook. Tweet about it. Write about it. Email about it. Talk to the folks at church, at the grocery store, at work. And turn out a huge vote down here. Southern Illinois can speak about the values and principles of this community. And if we're able to pull off that most improbable of upsets here in Illinois, then we will be on our way of nominating a conservative to lead our party. And if we have a conservative that leads our party, we will win this election, defeat Barack Obama, and keep